everybody. Welcome to our mentoring panel, our career path panel. This is the second one that we've had so far, and I'm so excited to talk to Tanushree today.
Hi everyone, I'm Tanushree and I'm so happy to virtually meet all of you, whoever is there listening to this. And I am currently based in Atlanta, Georgia. It's in the south of the US. And after graduating from TISB, I went to Emory and now I currently work at PwC. I grew up in Amritsar, Punjab, and so that's where I spent most of my life until I started at TISB in the 11th grade in boarding school. And it was an incredibly challenging but also wonderful experience and has been so far, and I'm happy to talk to you more about it. So I currently work as an assurance associate at PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and so what that really entails is that I work in the audit side of our practice, and I help audit big public companies. So I'm in a very centralized group where we mostly focus with big technology and product services clients. And so my experiences mostly in the past 2 years have been with like industrial products like industry. And so it's been an incredibly wonderful journey so far. I really like working at PwC and at a firm like PwC where you are really respected and taken care of, and each and every individual is really accounted for, even though it's such a large network of firms. And if anyone knows about PwC, they know that they exist in every single almost country in the world and are in so many different places that it feels sometimes like a part of a really big network, but they never make you feel go unnoticed, and all of your needs are really respected and everything. And that's what I kind of love about my job the most. A day in the life is very unusual. I think every day kind of differs, which is why I like it. Every day you're kind of solving a different challenge and a different problem. For me, like the day usually would entail like a couple of meetings with like the rest of my team, a couple of meetings with the client, and of course everything's very different in a virtual environment. We feel like we're on camera like all day, every day, and so our firm actually started this new effort with like we're not doing any video Fridays, so like everyone is encouraged to be off video on Fridays, which is such a blessing. But that's like just a little bit, but really like every day our main purpose is to build trust with the client and deliver an assurance that whatever they're presenting out into the world, the information that so many people are relying on is trustworthy, is complete, is accurate, is actually what it represents itself as. And so I think a lot of it is related to relationship building and trust. And so I think a lot of people have this notion of accountants and like accounting and auditing being a very mechanical industry where people don't like auditors, or people are very introverted, and I am very introverted, but I think there's a lot of relationship building, which is at the core of our job. And so I think that's one of the most consistent things that I'm doing every day, is building that relationship and maintaining it. But other than that, it would be like a lot of day-to-day activities, kind of like of making sure the audit is moving along smoothly and meeting our needs of the client every day. I think my journey has definitely been very different and unique in that I was very strategic in what I wanted to study, and I always knew kind of like that my end goal would be to land at a big four company, which PwC is one of them, and a really good, respectable one. And so I think I kind of moved backwards from there. I knew that I wanted to be starting out at a firm like that. And so for me, deciding the major in college came a little easier. I knew I wanted to do liberal arts for at least like the first 2 years. And so I spent my first 2 years at Oxford, which is a smaller campus of Emory, where you get to have like a very, very strong liberal arts education. And then I started at the business school in my junior year and graduated with a business administration degree, concentrating in accounting. And so I think for me, yes, my profession is very much directly related to what I majored in. Because for auditing, you definitely have to have like a very strong accounting background. You have to take like a lot of certification exams. So I'm CPA certified and licensed, and that's kind of similar to being a chartered accountant in India. I think for me, everything that I did, at least academically in at Emory, was definitely related to my profession. And yeah, on the job learning and everything is very different than what you're learning with your professors in school and classes. But I think there's a very strong correlation. And honestly, I would go as far to say that, like, I think a lot of my things that I did outside of my major also kind of really related to what I do now. And one of those things, like I mentioned, like, you'll probably get tired of me saying relationship building, but I think it's such an important aspect of our world. And we're seeing that right now in COVID, especially when you have to come up with so many creative ways of doing that. And I think I have the upper hand, or like just the advantage of doing that in college as an RA, when you're kind of establishing that relationship where there's already that distrust, like as RAs are, like supposed to prevent you from exploring your different options and everything in college, but that's not really the case. And I think I had a hard time, but like definitely like worked really hard to build those relationships with my residents and be a mentor and coach for them. And that I see in my day-to-day life right now very much. Like it's similar to like having a coach and a mentor, but also being that coach and mentor to oncoming people and everything. And just I think that like has been a really important part of this profession for me. And so I think everything like prepared me really well, like from college, from TISB, to be where I am today. I think own your path is like the biggest thing that you can do. You definitely don't have to have like all the answers to, who you are, what you want to do and everything. If you have them, then you have a very different path ahead of you. But if you don't have them, you also have a very different path ahead of you. Like what I mean is that like neither of them are wrong or right. I think like you can explore both in very different individualistic ways, and you just have to own it. Like so all of my best friends like came undecided at Emory, and that was just something that I wasn't familiar with. But please know that is like something that's very, very okay, very, very normal, and very much encouraged. Honestly, I wish I was undecided sometimes, like, and came to college and was ready to explore everything. And I'm not saying that I didn't. Like, I took some incredible like interdisciplinary courses and everything, but all I'm going to tell the people who are undecided or decided is just either way, please like own up to what you're wanting to do, and like be open to changing it, be open to mentorship opportunities and whatever interests you and everything. Because I mean, I have people who are like my best friends who came undecided, decided on like an English and marketing major, are now in education. Or I know some people who graduated with English degrees and are in public relations. And there's just so many different ways that you can go. There were so many times in Emory when I was just like, you know what, I should just quit and go to art school. So, that would have been fine too. If that's what you want to do and that works for you, then that's fine too. So I think you just have to kind of listen to yourself and see what matters to you, and then just kind of go from there. And I think I can't, like, this is so great. Like, mentorship opportunities are so important, like, especially when we are the age that we are. Even at my age right now, like, I graduated about a little over 2 years ago, but I still look for those mentorship opportunities from like students at Emory still, and beyond, like alumni and everything, and like people at PwC. It goes both ways. Like, you can learn from people younger than you and people older than you, and so just be open to that kind of relationship being fostered. Yeah, definitely. I mean, we all know that TISB is not an easy institution to be a part of, and I know a lot has changed there now, but when I was there, it definitely had its challenges in terms of like how restrictive sometimes it is and how academically driven it is. I think that it instilled in me a discipline that I to a degree I never thought I could have. Like I think I became so disciplined at Emory, sorry, at TISB, that that has something like that's something that has definitely stayed with me, and we call it like whole leadership kind of at PwC, and it's one of the biggest like frameworks that we're kind of like, let's say, graded on or something. And I think that I definitely get from my 2 years at TISB, because you had to be in ownership of your own kind of schedule, and at least in boarding school, you know, like with the times dedicated to you to be awake and to be studying, and like, or be a part of like, okay, like some kind of morning activity and everything. And so all of that, like, I think just discipline is the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about all of that. But I think even otherwise, like, it made me also really intrusive. Intrusive. What am I saying? It's 8 a.m. people. Inquisitive. Yes. Sorry, English is failing me today. But I think all of my classes and teachers at TISB, like who I still like remain in touch with, like they definitely made us ask a lot of questions to ourselves. And IB as a course itself is so challenging in that way that like it really makes you think about like connections between biology and maths. And like, you know, we saw that with like TOK and extended essays and everything, where they really like make you branch out and like really think about the world in a different way. And that's something that as auditors we definitely have to do every day. Like we have to be professionally skeptical, and so not taking anything at face value and always being skeptical and always kind of asking those important difficult questions. And I think that I have like only been able to do because of my experiences at TISB, because all we did were like ask questions to our teachers, ourselves, our peers, everything. And so I think those are two biggest things that I would say like have stayed with me since then. So I think the part that I like the most about my job is the coaching opportunities that I get every single day, in terms of coaching the interns in the first years, but also being coached by people who've been with the firm for like more than 10 years, but even more than a year more than me, have so much to give and everything. And all of that kind of just shows how much you learn every single day. Like you just can't be done learning at the job that I am. And so like every day you're taking like new trainings, you're learning, you're expanding your knowledge, and you're never kind of satisfied. And that's what I love the most, because I want to continue doing that, changing how I see the client's knowledge and everything, and I want to continue expanding on it. And so I think that's my favorite thing, and how much our firm really puts importance on that coaching aspect. Like I think that to me is my favorite part of the job. um, in terms of making decisions at the job, I definitely like, we are encouraged even as associates to speak up, take part in decisions with our managers and everything, and give our opinions on like how we want to go about strategy. And so a little example would be, so with auditing, so if I'm auditing revenue for a certain, I'll try to make it as simple as possible, but if the client, like the client has revenue, which most clients do, and so our responsibility is to test like that revenue, whether it exists or not, whether it's accurately represented, whether it's theirs and they have like actual ownership of it and everything. And so there are different ways that you can come at that. And so I'm encouraged to give my opinions on how we should go about testing that, how we should go about approaching it and everything. And those are little decisions that I get to make, which I really like. But aside of like just client relationships and client work, we also are a part of like a lot of different committees at work. So I'm a part of the community service committee and the purpose and inclusion council, the recruiting, and like just the Pan Asian community. So like little families like that that we have formed. And so also making decisions in terms of, okay, which community service project are we going to support throughout the year, which one are we going to take part in this particular weekend or something like that, and how are we going to get everyone to kind of sign up and support and fundraise. And so little things like that, those are things that I love to do at Emory, and I'm glad that I get a chance to do that even at PwC, and that the firm actually helps encourage us block off time for those opportunities and responsibilities. And so I think every day you're kind of making like so many decisions and they kind of get lost on you, like that you're doing so much. But trust me, like even in TISB, you're making all of those decisions subconsciously. And even at like whatever college you go to, you will. So I think I come back to the whole thing of like just taking ownership of it and trusting yourself and being confident in the decisions you decide to make. I will be very, very candid with all of you. My first 2 years were a disaster in terms of just the hours and mental health. And I wish that I'd done more, but I really tried to do the best that I could. So the reason for that was that I was traveling. My client was not in town. And so I was traveling a lot for my job. And so last year itself, I traveled 26 out of 52 weeks. And this is a number I know very well because I represented it to my managers and I was like, look, 26 out of 52 weeks, I was not home. You gotta change this because I can't live like this. I probably put on like 15, 20 pounds, like, with just eating out every day, every week. And it was a lot. It was definitely a lot. And so I think my mental health like was definitely out for a toll last year. But I was having those conversations. We knew that that project was very unique, unstable, and not realistic. And so I will say this is not something that everyone that starts out goes through. It was a very unique situation where like everyone on that team, we found it very challenging. I was not the only one doing it. My whole team was with me. It was just a very unique circumstance. But what I will say is that I had those conversations with all of my managers, like, the minute I started feeling the pressure, the minute I started feeling like I was not being able to take care of myself. And since then, all they did was just try to find other opportunities for me. Like, and everyone knew that that project was gonna end this March, and it did, which is great. And so they really, like we had our trust in them and they really stuck to that. They found me an on like local job where I would just be working in Atlanta. And right now COVID is different. So we're all working from home in general. But even despite of that, like I would have just been in Atlanta, which is great, on a very like much more stable job. And so I think my circumstances were definitely unique. But I will say that even though like all of that was very challenging, I learned so much more in the past 2 years that I could have ever imagined. And I think our team was so incredibly close that I do miss all of them a lot. Like we're all on different clients now, but I miss all of them. One of them just sent me a save the date card yesterday, and I'm like very excited to go to her wedding and everything. So you do get to like have like very close relationships, I would say, at least like with people that you're traveling with, because you're spending so much more time with them than like your actual friends or family. And if you have a good support system with them, then it does become a truly incredible experience. Because I mean, I went to Providence and loved Providence and had amazing food over there, but I also went to cold Fort Collins, Indiana, where we had a lot of snowstorms and like only had fast food options. So it really just, you just have to make the most of those experiences. And I'm glad that I did it early on in my career where I don't have a lot of other responsibilities and everything. The hours were awful for most part of the year. I was working weekends, we were traveling over the weekends, but I think everything has changed since COVID, and I think people are being more respectful of people's time. And PwC has always been really flexible. Like even when I was traveling, like sometimes like we would get back, like we would leave Sunday evening, sometimes we would get back Thursday evening, and then I would just work from home Friday or work from home Saturday, like kind of thing, or something like that, like if we had to work Saturday. And so I think they've been really flexible in that aspect always. And right now especially, like we're seeing a lot of that, like with flexible hours and everyone being very mindful of people's personal spaces and people being at home. And so it's really great that they do value like you as a person and everything that's important to you as personal and professional goals. But this is something that I tell everyone, like, who is interested in this industry, like, know that there will be months where you will be working a bit overtime, but not to the extent that I was. So for us, tax is completely different. So I know people hear a lot about like tax season. I don't know if I did in TISB, but I think in college I started to hear about tax season and things like that. I don't deal with that. I don't deal with anything with taxes, but we do have busy months where, for instance, like if I'm working with a client that has a December 31 year end, like calendar year end, then if they're public, you have to issue an opinion on the financial statements that they're putting out into the world, whether or not we can trust them and everything in the next few months. And so usually that would happen in February or like early March. And so January, February, and then March would be like busy for you because that's like the time crunch, right? Like, so you're evaluating a lot in that time period. So those are times that you would be working more than 8 hours a day, kind of thing. But it does come to an end. We have like flexible summers and everything. So we're, if we're done for the day, like if we're done with our work for the week and everything on Friday, so like after lunch, we just don't come back to work. We used to do that a lot, like where when we were in person in the office, like on Friday, like we would go out to lunch with our team or like go grab drinks at a bar or something and then just not come back and, you know, start the weekend early. So little things like that, like they really do help. I know it sounds like very you know, small and everything compared to like your larger life, but it does make a difference. Know that like mental health is just, it's so important. Like whatever you need to do, like, you know, you just have to have like those conversations up front with the people that you're working with and let them know like these are XYZ things that I need to be doing. And so I will say that like we have a lot of like different initiatives where like, you know, we have like access to like a lot of physical workout spaces, and we all used to go for team walks. Like my senior and I used to wake up at 4 in the morning and go to Orange Theory or like go do 100 squats before we started working and things. And so little things like that, like whatever works for you, you just have to speak up for it, and chances are someone on the team is also needing that and will do it with you to keep you accountable also. I think in high school, you should focus your whole energy on figuring out what's important to you and what, you know, you're passionate about, what drives you, what gives you energy. And so taking note of all of those things, you can do a lot of research in terms of like there are different, you know, opportunities that you can do with different careers, like, and now that's kind of increasing exponentially with the changing environment and everything. And so I think in high school, like those are a few things that you can do. But one of the biggest things that I would say like really helped me is just talking to a lot of people who are in college, people who are working, people who are outside of the realm of high school and your peers. So like definitely talk to your peers about like what they want to do and like what their like, you know, opportunities look like and everything. But just expand on your network like so much, and I can't stress that enough because I think I have gained so much value in just talking to people about like their day-to-day lives that it's been really really inspiring for me. And I continue to do that like even today. Like we're actually interviewing a lot of people with creative kind of careers past Emory. And so I'm starting that initiative with one of my friends, and we're just going to talk to people like in a creativity like plus kind of sense, because creative is not just like working as a film director or like as an artist or a musician, right? Like it goes beyond so much. And especially in our world, it's like UI UX, which I don't know if like you all will know, but like did not even exist like when I was, you know, like in TISB, or if it did, I had no idea what it was and everything. And so there's so much coming up in the world. And so just be very, very open to doing that research, open to like different opportunities and everything. And so I think that would be my biggest thing, like that high school students can do, specific to like if you are interested in the professional services industry, which is like what PwC is a part of larger. Um, so anything to do with like auditing, taxes, advisory consulting, data science. Like we do so many different like things where we provide services to clients. So if you are interested in that, like one thing, obviously talk to people who are in that industry right now. And then a few other things would be just like doing like mini courses on the side whenever you have time, like on different tools that, you know, we use. And so there's a lot of cool tools that I don't know if like TISB has started introducing. They didn't at our time, but like with data execution, data visualization, and data mining and everything. So there's like things like Alteryx and Tableau. They're like little tools that like help you like just in life, even like in anything that you want to do. So doing like little trainings like that, like constantly learning and being out of the box and like out of your comfort zone and everything, like I think is really, really important. And I think those are the things you should focus on in high school, because once you get to college, then you'll deal with all the academics and like talking to your professors who will guide you through like step by step, like what you need to do. You'll go through recruiting and everything. So don't worry about all that at the moment. I think TISB people already have so much on their plate that like I think that relationship building and learning from like your mentors like is probably the most important thing that you can be doing in school. I mean, my biggest challenge was definitely like trying to get a job as an international student, and because I was on an F1 visa, and trying to get a job that would eventually sponsor me for an H1B visa was my biggest challenge, still remains to this day, like in just navigating the political and the changing climate, and making sure that like I'm doing everything that's in my power to do, and then what happens is just kind of like up to the world and everything. But knowing that like I'm doing the best that I can be doing and everything, I think that was a constant struggle that I had, because I was constantly undermining myself, and you know, just being really harsh on myself with like a lot of interviews that would happen, and then them be like, we can't offer you this position because you're an international student. And I'm like, why'd you even interview me? Like, you shouldn't have wasted my time and your time. And yeah, like now when I look back at it, I'm like, it's not wasted time, because I'm still getting to know about their company and they're still getting to know about my experiences. So I'm sure we all learned something from that, but it's also just like being upfront is so important that like I think that was my biggest challenge when I was going through recruiting at Emory, and like just going through interviews and everything, was just to keep going at it, knowing that there's very few opportunities out there for someone with a status like me. And that's becoming even harder if people are considering coming to the US. Then that's something that they very much need to be prepared for. My sister's currently in college at like Wellesley, and it's hard, like it's harder for her than it was for me. And so I think knowing that is really important. But I think that was probably my biggest challenge. It was not in terms of like, oh, how am I going to do like at interviewing and everything, because I think my college prepared me really well for that, but doing like a lot of mock interviews and everything. And if anyone needs like anything related to that, I'm happy to help, like with really anything, mock interviews, resumes, all of that, because all of that stuff is in your control. So you can work at it, you can keep practicing it, and you can get better at it. But like all of the things that you don't have control over, I think those were the harder macroeconomic like kind of factors that like really impacted my experience. And I'm happy to talk to like anyone more about the H1B experience, or like international student recruiting and everything. Like I think that conversation should happen like one-on-one. So I won't say a whole lot like while this is like recording, but yeah, you all can definitely reach out to me about that. I don't, and I wish my sister had listened to me, so maybe someone will, but I don't discourage anyone from coming to the US. The education is still the finest, the most exemplary. Like you will have such an incredible time in your college experience here. If you know what you're gonna be here for, kind of thing. Like if you have like your expectations, like if you're coming to a place like Emory, like be ready to be like studying really, really hard, and like participating in a lot of like interdisciplinary and like extracurricular things and everything, and like constantly being out of your comfort zone kind of thing. This is a hard question, but like what I will say is that like I think the reason I say no is because I think knowing everything that I did do now, like I don't think I would come back kind of thing. And I think that's easier said than done because like you still want to go through that education and everything. I wouldn't replace that for anything. I wouldn't even replace my first 2 years at like PwC for anything. But I think it's just becoming more and more challenging. And so if your intent is to leave India with the purpose of settling down somewhere else and working for long-term periods, like in a different country, in a different place, then I think you have better options to explore and easier options in that like they're more flexible. So places like Canada or maybe even somewhere in Europe or Australia or something, like I think the immigration process is a little easier, the recruiting process is a little easier. But I definitely say that with caution because like all of this changes every year. So you can't really make like a wrong or right decision in this. Like you don't know what's going to happen with Canada, like immigration and recruiting 4 years from now. Chances are it's probably still going to be more welcoming than the US, but like we don't know. And all of that, like, you know, can change. But I think like with the US, like even regardless of like the outcome of the elections and everything, I think like the process for immigration is just definitely going to be harder than it used to be a few years ago. Like for example, my class was the last class where PwC hired international students for auditing. So I barely made it, and now when I talk to Emory international students, I'm very, very, you know, not like disappointed, but just like really saddened that like I have to tell them I made it, but I'm sorry that we can't offer you positions and everything. And so telling them not to lose hope and everything is hard when like, you know that you can't recruit them. And so little things like that, like there's so much that has changed since I started that I just like want everyone to know what they're getting themselves into. So again, like I don't think I would say don't come to the US for education if like you're only coming for the education aspect and you're prepared to explore other opportunities after graduating, then definitely. But I know for some people that's not a possibility. It was not for me. And so I understand your circumstances too. I will help you as much as I can in maintaining your status and staying here. But just know that it just gets harder and harder every year. And so looking at other places that are more open would be my advice. Like, I mean, Canada education is also incredible and they're much more welcoming with their immigration. And so I think having been through what I've been through, it's such a stressful process and so challenging. And with the travel and everything, I literally wanted to break down every week last year. But, somehow I'm here, I made it. And so that's also like I have the privilege of being able to say this and looking back, right? Like, and a lot of people don't. And so I want to recognize that too. I like that question a lot. Um, well, I think my firm as a friend is very, very like accountable and loyal and very invest in your experience so much and respect you as a person so much and are constantly like challenging you and developing you and giving back to you and you want to give back to them. And so I think it's a wonderful relationship in that way, like where like I do think like it's like a friendship, right? Like where you want to be challenged in your friendship, you want to be like a better person always, like and everything. But at the same time, friendships go through some hardships and challenges where you want to pull each other's hair or something, and that still happens, but not enough to be like I don't want to be there. I am very, very proud that I'm a part of PwC as much as like I would be very proud to like have like amazing friendships and loyal friendships. Like that's how I feel, and I think they know what matters to you and make sure that they're giving you the opportunities to explore what matters to you. And like especially like I will say like like with COVID right now, some of my friendships have like gone very distant and everything, but I have people in my life who respect like, hey, I am not ready to dine into an indoor space and everything, that's something that I'm not willing to do. I will meet you outside somewhere, we'll go hiking, but like I'm not gonna dine in. My friends respect that, and I think it's similar with my relationship with PwC. They are not making us come back to the office. They are very much encouraging our health and safety over everything. Like letting go of people was the last resort, and it still hasn't happened. We haven't had furloughs, we haven't had salary decreases, nothing. And so I think those are little things, right? Like whatever is important to you, they are valuing, and I think that's what I look for in my friendships too. The only thing like I would end on is just like I think like at TISB, like one of the things that was very challenging for me was focusing on academics like all the time, and especially in your 11th and 12th grade, like you don't get a chance to like take care of your other passions. And some people love playing music, some people love to do art and like things like that, and so they put that on the back burner, or at least like when I was at TSB, we were all putting it on the back burner because like we were just so stressed out about everything. My advice to all of you would be not to do that. It really matters what you're passionate about. You're an all-rounded person, more than your academics, more than your IB grades. Let me tell you, more than your IB grades, please. And so just be very, very intentional in staying true to like everything that you care about. And if you're having a hard time balancing all of that, talk to your teachers, talk to someone you trust over there, talk to us mentors, whoever like you feel comfortable with. But I really do want to encourage that, because I like that TISB is finally acknowledging that people's mental health matters, because they didn't when we were there. And I just want everyone to know that like your experience is really valid, and like everything you're feeling is really valid, and just speak up and talk to them. I wish I had rebelled, but it's okay. It's for another time. You guys can do it instead of me, but yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.